delighted today to be speaking to Mark Brooks, founder and director of Mark Brooks Education, here in Johannesburg at the Radisson in Sandton. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks very much for the invitation today.
So we've got our networking dinner here tonight at the Radisson. Looking forward to seeing you there. You've been in South Africa for a few days. Why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Well, we've had a very busy few days, and the timing's been fantastic because while we're here, the President is also meeting the King Charles III in the UK. There's been a lot of publicity about that, and it's fantastic timing. We've met parents who are considering boarding schools, met schools who are looking at workshops and training, and the highlight will be the dinner tonight.
Great. So tell us a little bit more about your company. I mean, you work on the one hand with schools, but also with parents trying to navigate these complex decisions they're making about education. Tell us a little bit more about the company and why you set it up.
So I established Mark Brooks Education 20 years ago, and I'm a consultant for families, and I've also got a background in schools as well. Been a schools marketing consultant and worked on senior leadership teams. But now I work exclusively with families from Africa, inviting them on British boarding school places, and I placed 60 students this September, and we've had a lot of interest from South Africa on this visit as well. Predominantly I work in West Africa, but now we're kind of branching out to South Africa and other parts of Africa too.
So you work with the families to help the children find the right school, but also to prepare for that school and to work with the schools on the other hand to make sure they're getting the right candidates. I mean, how do you describe your advisory process?
Well, it's a 360 service really. We meet them, I interview the child to understand their interest and abilities and try and match the school to the child, meet the parents, often drive them around schools in the UK as well when they come and visit, and we follow them up and make sure they help on the application process and until they join really with visas and the whole process. And I do keep in touch with families when they join the school, even if they've been in the school 5 years. They ring me up for advice on the family friends and things like that. So it's really good.
Do you work with schools across the length and breadth of the UK to create a whole range of options of different styles of education and location?
Yes, I work with around 150 schools from the top of Scotland, from Gordonston to Truro High School in Cornwall, to schools in Northern Ireland, Wales, and also in East Anglia as well. Wow. And I get to know them very well and visit them twice a week. I'm on a school visit, so immediately I get back from Johannesburg, we're shooting up to the north of England to see a school there, and another school on Friday as well. Great.
I mean, are there certain schools that work more with families from South Africa, or it's pretty spread across the board just depending on the child and what's needed?
It's growing really. The schools we've had on this trip have had South African students, and one of the heads has been South African as well, and so they have a tradition of welcoming students from South Africa, so it's been fantastic kind of synergy flowing through.
Do the schools you talk to readily understand the opportunity of working with you on engaging with families from, say, South Africa or West Africa, and you help them navigate that market? Do they readily get, why they need to be coming to these places, getting on the ground, experiencing interaction?
That's interesting, really brilliant question. They didn't used to. They used to think that agents didn't work very hard and didn't do much for their small commission. But actually, since the pandemic, since we've been working online throughout the pandemic, and since we're a ready source of students for them, and they've not been able to travel, they've been relying on us even more. And now I see myself as a pioneer in opening up new markets. So we're looking to run an event in Mauritius in March. Wow. And that'll be the first time we've had an event out there as well. So we're kind of spreading our net more widely. And
West Africa, as you mentioned, is a market you know very well. I mean, perhaps you could tell us what you observe in going to Nigeria and Ghana over many years.
Yeah, I've been going to Nigeria for 14 years and Ghana for 5 years, and there's never been more increased interest than ever before, really, from families who are looking to relocate to the UK and also to send their children to the UK, particularly for sixth form places as well, because in Nigeria and sometimes in Ghana there aren't so many sixth form opportunities for A-levels or IB, so that's a growing market for me as well. And I'm really proud that a couple of years ago I was made the Department for International Trade Export Champion, which means they support everything we do, and the British High Commission arranged this trip for us, and they welcome us to receptions at Lagos and Ghana as well.
Fantastic. How many trips do you make on an average year into these different markets?
Well, in Lagos, I'm in once a month, and I was there twice a month in October. So in terms of events, I run boarding school exhibitions quite regularly. It's going to be 3 times a year in Lagos. I've been running those for 10 years. And in January, I'm taking 20 schools to Lagos for an exhibition for a weekend, which is very exciting.
Are there many first-time visitors? And out of that 20, are they experienced Nigeria travellers, or are they going for the first time?
It's a bit of both. Over the last 10 years, I've built up quite a following of schools who want to come once a year, and now I go 3 times a year for the exhibitions. They kind of cycle into that. Now, they've been so popular that a lot of the schools are wanting to come 3 times a year now as well, which is great. And
within those exhibitions, I mean, is the British education and the brand of British education, does that have a strong currency? You know, are there schools there from other parts of the world as well, or these are UK education specific exhibitions?
They're UK education specific exhibitions because they're the most popular schools from Nigerian and Ghanaian families because of the cultural ties and Commonwealth ties as well. And actually the British government have targeted Nigeria as one of their 5 key destinations for trade and business in the world at the moment. So we're riding on that wave too. And we find that a lot of Nigerians went to British boarding schools themselves and want their children to have their own all-round experience they had themselves. And a UK education, in higher education as well, in university, is an aspiration, isn't it? Do you see that boarding is good preparation, I guess, for families who really want a UK higher education for children? Yes, at the end of the day, the families want the best possible university place for their children, and UK education is a stepping stone to America. American universities are increasingly popular, also British universities as well. So it helps to be actually in the country and getting the preparation. I know some schools have 3 university counsellors working with a group of children each year. So. And do you work with families just on the age range of the primary and secondary education, and university advice you leave to someone else, or how do you manage across the spectrum with families you're working with? No, I'm very simplistic, very simple person, keep life simple. So I advise families from Africa who are looking for primary, prep and senior school places up to the age of 18, and I work with colleagues who are university experts, so I pass those on. Fantastic. And do you work closely with other intermediaries in the private wealth sector? I mean, we were introduced by a private bank that has strong ties to Africa. Do you see similar from other type of, as we'd say, intermediaries? Well, yes, that's a very relevant question, because a lot of the families I work with have a background in banking and finance themselves, and CEOs of banks and etc. But also I work with other intermediaries such as finance people, relocation agents, and particularly at the moment immigration consultants for families wanting to relocate to the UK. Fantastic. Well, look, Mark, great to talk to you today. Look forward to seeing you tonight for the dinner and sharing this interview. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
The latest technical content delivered through global conversations with professionals for professionals.